You're talking about pet pampering. I can pamper this guy all I want because he's a puppet, so it's not going to spoil him, that's for sure. Dr. Loenser is here. It's a billion-dollar business, right? People just really spend a lot of money pampering their pets.
They do, and they mean well. They absolutely do. So they'll get their dogs coats and boots, fancy foods with extra additives and beautiful bowls and fancy beds, and it really is all done out of love.
It is done out of love. It's just like a child, right? I mean, you love them that way, and you mean well, but there are problems, right? And it can be harmful to a dog. You have to be careful about overfeeding them and lack of exercise.
Absolutely. 1 in 2 dogs and cats are overweight. Over 50% of our dog and cat population. So actually, most people look at animals and they can't even tell if they're overweight or the ideal weight because we're so used to looking at fat pets. The best thing to do is visit your veterinarian and ask them, is my animal overweight? Because frankly, we as veterinarians, it's kind of a hard thing for us to bring up.
Is that one of the biggest problems that you have with pets?
It really is, and when they're even just a couple of pounds overweight, like a small dog being 5 or 6 pounds overweight, that could be the equivalent of you and I carrying around an extra 30 or 40 pounds.
And it doesn't matter, like whether they're city dogs or in the country, is it still the same problem, all this pampering that goes on?
Well, I think New York is probably a mecca for pampering, but we're also a mecca for being out on the street and walking them, going to the dog park. Where I live in New Jersey, we have a lot of fenced-in yards, and we can let our dogs out to go in the yard, but they might not be burning the calories that our New York City dogs are.
Heather, one of the other problems, too, is behavioral issues.
The 2 biggest ones are aggression and separation anxiety. And actually, aggression is the top reason that dogs get sent to animal shelters. It actually can be, life-threatening or life-limiting for them because it's hard to adopt out an aggressive dog.
And if you're living in an apartment in New York especially, they start barking, tear up furniture, and do all kinds of things.
Yeah, who wants to live next to a dog that's barking because they miss their owner so much? So that's separation anxiety. With the aggression, I'd like to see these dogs being acclimated to pets and people at a very young age, ideally between 6 and 12 weeks of age. But if you got your dog older than that, you can still get them out and about and praise them when they behave properly. With the separation anxiety, most of the time they flip out and get really upset is in the first 30 minutes you leave the house.
Really?
So you can try to give them something to do in that time period. So there's great dog puzzles. Just Google like food puzzle for dogs. There's tons of them out there.
There are things you can do.
And that keeps them occupied until you get home.
Okay, so break it down for us. If we're trying to be very careful, we want to pamper our pets, but we don't want to spoil them and harm them in any way. What are the main things we should be thinking about?
I'm a veterinarian, and I strongly believe that all dogs and cats should go to the vet at least once a year. And ideally, you find a hospital that's accredited by the American Animal Hospital Association. The reason I say that is these hospitals have voluntarily chosen to go above and beyond in taking care of pets. And you can find them at aaha.org.
One of the other things that you've mentioned before is you have to watch their teeth. You have to be very careful.
Yes, and most people actually don't watch their teeth. They don't lift up their lip to see whether or not there's tartar or plaque or bleeding gums underneath there. We tend to ignore that.
Yeah, that's very important.
And because of that, 80% of dogs and cats over the age of 3 have dental disease. When you go in on an annual visit to visit your veterinarian, ask your vet what they think of your dog or cat's teeth. They'll probably recommend that you either need to brush daily, at home, or the pet may need to have their teeth cleaned under anesthesia. Under anesthesia is the important part. There's some groomers and other organizations that will scrape the teeth with sharp tools. It's painful and it's dangerous because they can accidentally bite down on that tool. So make sure the dental is done under anesthesia.
Okay, before we go, I want you to tell me about that pin that you're wearing. I know you're very proud of this association.
Yes, this is the American Animal Hospital Association, and we're an organization that accredits veterinary hospitals. So what that means is we come into veterinary hospitals and see if they adhere to our standards of veterinary excellence. There's over 900 standards. So if you find a hospital like this, you know that you found cream of the crop. But only 12 to 15% of hospitals are actually accredited. So they can be hard to find. There's a ton here in New York, and you can find them if you go to aaha.org, so aha.org, and click on the hospital locator, type in the zip code, and you'll see a list of hospitals.
Very nice. You want to say goodbye to Buddy Boy here?
It was so nice meeting you, Buddy Boy.
Guy.
Keep up the good work.
I didn't realize he sheds.
Yes, yeah, he does shed.
Dr. Loenser, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.